Hi everyone, my name is Jenny Wu. I'll stand on the side so people can see it. Real time I wasn't doing data science. I was actually trying to be a banker for a while. Went back and running data science team about 10 years ago. Left because a lot of data quality issues. This was with the bank, so this was around about the time then when Royal Commission hits. So I think I left the banking thinking I want to do data strategy and data governance to fix all the data issues and make the whole data science AI ecosystem work more efficient, so the data scientists can actually focus on building models rather than cleaning data. And pretty much I've been doing this sort of work for about 7-8 years now. And pretty much today I'm just going to talk about how this sort of work generally goes when you go in and talk to senior leaders about investment in data and AI, how you go about setting out, like data office functions. I think the CDO function or the chief AI officer role are kind of not as common in Australia, but I think that's a lot more common overseas in US and Europe. So I'm going to start by talking about what is actually strategy, and this is one of the definitions that I thought is probably closer to when it comes to data and AI, because it's actually a functional strategy rather than like corporate strategy. Because I think if you talk to a strategist, they usually like to refer to Porter's work, and it's actually more about the whole competitive landscape and how you should establish yourself as a firm and then gain competitive advantage over the others. But I think this definition here on how you pursue long-term goals as an enterprise and how you figure out exactly what you need to do in order to deliver that outcome, I think is essentially what strategy is. And that quote at the top, unless structure follows strategy, efficiency results. And that's actually exactly what I saw in a lot of data analytics functions that's not run very well, because I think these days, I think a lot of the generations of leaders came through, and I think that they understand a lot better, because I think they grew up doing that sort of work, so they know how to run that sort of team a lot better. But I think 20 years ago, when I was doing that sort of work, this sort of function are generally run by the business who actually really don't understand data analytics, and I think more so, I think going back to what Stefan was talking about in his presentation around like experimentation is crucial. Because I still remember in a different event that I was doing a talk a couple of years ago, that there's someone in the audience saying to me that, oh, we did this deep learning exercise and it didn't tell us anything we didn't know already. I don't really see the value of doing it. But I think when it comes to like experimentation, sometimes it's around, okay, so it confirms everything that you didn't know already. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to test your next idea? And I think a lot of time that's what's missing. So I think doing the strategy work can kind of help establish that process. And I think culturally how the business and the data team can collaborate as well. So I think how Alan Joyce's $9 million bonus, because they didn't think that this whole decision about a few decisions they made through COVID in terms of how they cut back on their expenses actually damaged the customer relationship. I think as part of that they actually hold back his bonus of $9 million. But looking at their, I think this is from their website. Looking at their competitive advantage is around shareholder values, and then how they maximize their the portfolio of business brands. I think by that means Qantas, Jetstar, and the Qantas loyalty program. And you can see that it lay out clearly in terms of what their challenges are, like the customer workforce, climate change, and the strategic priorities how they wanted to maximize their brand, and align the growth. And also, I think the most important one, I think they call it out really well, is investing in customer brand data and digital. I think they recognize that, and I think if you actually go through their website, you also they talk about the investment they made in 2013, how they do the transformation program, and then they deliver $3 billion worth of benefits from 2015 and 2019. So I think a lot of it actually refer to some of the work they do in the airport around how you're meant to do self-check-in and all that. I think the whole process actually remove a lot of personnel expenses. And then I'm looking at another example I think I grabbed is for Center Group. So I think it's actually not about making money, it's actually creating like nice space for people to come together. It's actually very community focused. It didn't lay out the structure as nicely as the Qantas one, but I think at the high level, they just wanted to be a responsible and sustainable business. So I think a lot of the things that underpinning that is community, environment, economic performance, of course, and then talent. So I think if you tie that to the sort of whole data and AI work, you will find that around the community, you'll probably wanted to measure the people who visit the center, and there are different ways that you can track that. I think through the Westfield app, through the car they're going into the car park, for example, those things all, you can through IoT data. Net zero emission, I think there's a lot of sustainability and climate initiative. A lot of reporting are mandated overseas already. I think in Australia it's pretty much starting pretty much next year, I think. And talent that will be on your people's side. And of course, I think economic performance is more on the P&L and balance sheet side of things. So going from here to there, how does it all tie together in general? So I think when you go and talk to an organization or you talk to the board and the C-suites, a lot of it is with all these priorities that you wanted to deliver, what do you need in order to deliver some of your projects? I think a lot of the simple questions starting point will be around like, what data do you need to run your business well? Some of them have very clear idea, like the ones that they are more, like the maturity is higher. If we're going back to Qantas, they're already doing a lot of automation and a lot of digitalization. So they will know how they are going in terms of some of the projects. And if you ask them what project they wanted to do, it most likely will be something more advanced. But for a business that's sort of relatively mature, a lot of time when you ask them that question, they don't even know what's their underlying business driver, and that becomes difficult. You almost need to take them through that experimentation process and go, okay, so what's your hypothesis in terms of what's your underlying business drivers? And you kind of have to go through that analysis in order to get to, right, okay, so the customers are leaving because of this reason. And if you do this sort of offering, you're most likely, and therefore I think in the last few years, if you looking at things from a compliance angle, generally you get a lot of attention and a lot of people will be interested in help pushing some of this initiative forward as well. And I think the last one is pretty much what's being produced at the moment. Are there things that people are actually using or people are actually not using? Because I know that some of the chief data officers for the major banks, they actually were looking at the products that's been produced, and they will actually monitor on how many times that particular product gets accessed. If no one's using it, they just kill it and go, it's past expiry date. We're not going to maintain that, or we're not going to have resources maintain that particular data product anymore. This one here is actually looking at where things are at and where the things need to be. Because I think once you've gone through the exercise, you understand what you need from stakeholders' perspective, whether you have enough governance, gathering business requirements, and whether your infrastructure, whether you're working with the IT team well or not, whether there's enough data management process in place. You can kind of divide things into like different stream of work. and then different initiatives that you need to deliver. I don't know whether it's a 3-year strategy or 5-year strategy. I think in here we have a 5-year strategy. And then typically, each one of these big initiatives, they would have lots of projects underpinned against it. And then there will be people tagged to them, like how much resourcing is actually required if you want to go from current state to future state. And there's a way to price them up usually, because I think a lot of the time when we write a strategy paper, we actually need to go and present to the board and go, okay, in order to go from current state to the future state, these are the investment required. What's the payback period looks like? And for example, how much can you capitalize? And at the same time, I think if you're actually simplifying your data technology landscape as well, you also kind of need to work out how much money can you save along the way as well, and then some of the duplicated processes that you identified, how much savings is generated from that. So I think a few things that I found very useful is when you're having these conversations, the industry standards, the practice guide is a frame of reference, because I think a lot of time, when you go in and do a strategy for data and AI, some people aren't particularly familiar with the topic. So if you go in, for example, with a maturity model, at least people can connect straight away and go, hey, we are here, and we need to be there. And I think generally that sort of model have different dimensions that you can tie your initiative to different dimensions, and then people can align themselves into, like, for example, if I'm in the IT function, these are a bunch of things I need to run, and therefore I'm responsible for those. It kind of can bring people together if you actually have a really nice model as a frame of reference. And then I think the sort of ecosystem thinking is, how do you go from beginning to the end? If it's not you, who else will be responsible for the process? And encourage people to kind of bring them into the conversation, and then help enhance the stakeholder participation. And I think the other one is around documentation, like what I was mentioning in the previous slides around documenting use cases. Because I think ultimately, if you do that pretty well, you go, okay, we want to be able to do this particular type of use cases, and these are the resources required. I think people will refer to that in the future as well. And I think typically when you document the use cases, there are data sources identified, for example. And then there's additional people, skill set, or technology requirements. Typically, it comes into that as well. And I think the last one is around, okay, what benefits do we expect to get out of doing that? That's just a way to demonstrate your return on benefits and hold everyone accountable, I guess. That's pretty it. I think just kind of quickly go through this at a high level without going into too much details. Some of these exercises are easier to do with certain organizations than other organizations, and I think in the way that people are all really keen in terms of moving things forward. You will actually come across people who are in a little bit of denial and then resistance change, especially sometimes at the senior level. I think people don't like the status quo being challenged because people are comfortable with their position. Yeah.